I met Bryan the day he was born. Actually, I had been talking to him long before then, but that's when I officially met him, September 3rd, 1967. It was a Sunday afternoon. He was a beautiful baby. He ate well, he slept well, and I thought, what a piece of cake. As a young boy, as a toddler, as a young boy, he was extremely energetic, sometimes to my distraction.
I met Bryan Beyer in 1976. We were the two players on the Little League team that could throw the ball over the plate. So we were the pitchers. If you were in a lineup of people that you were going to pick for your team, and it was a schoolyard pick, you pick Bryan every time.
And as he got older, I often wondered what people complained about their teenage children, because I didn't really face any problems with Bryan till he turned 18, and then things got different. But by the time he was 25, I wasn't so stupid anymore, and that was good. He turned into the adult I always hoped he would be. And he was lovely, kind, generous, enthusiastic, full of life, full of adventures. Could talk to a rock wall, I swear. He never met a stranger.
And after all the violence and double talk, it's just a song and only trouble and the strife. You do the walk, yeah, you do the walk on love. You do the walk on love.
Max moved out there. She was here in Memphis when I met Bryan, and then she stayed here for several years after he moved out there, and then she followed him out in the mid-2000s. I believe after her folks passed, she moved into their house out in Loma Rica, which is out north of Sacramento. Bryan and Max were very close. He went out there with some regularity. She came in town, into the city occasionally as well. And now Maxine's a great lady. I've had many fond memories with her. She's a very gracious host as well. She taught her son well.
The big thing about Bryan was he was always that sense of adventure. Whenever I saw him, we had an adventure. Each one would be completely unique to the others. The times that I went out to San Francisco, I landed in San Francisco, Bryan picked me up at the airport and had his convertible with the top down, and we drove up through the city on a beautiful sunny day and across the Golden Gate. We drove up into Mount Tamalpais to a restaurant. I could never find it again in 1,000 years, but it was a great place. We had a gourmet sandwich and a beer. And the most memorable part of it was it's the one place in the Bay Area where I could sit and look at the Pacific Ocean and the San Francisco Bay at the same time. And he loved both those things, so it was a really great experience.
Bryan and I first met, I think, in middle school around 7th or 8th grade, and we kind of knew each other through high school at Germantown, but our junior, mainly senior year, we really became friends and, just kind of hung out a lot together and did stuff, and he was just one of my really closest friends and someone I could always count on. So
So I met Bryan Beyer when I was 18 years old. So I've known him for 32 years now.
He was such a free spirit and a good person to have in my life. I remember meeting him, I think it was 1989. I was probably 20, 21. And he was roommates with my other friend, Brandon Robinson. They were both roommates at Audubon Downs. And they worked together. And I remember he was playing guitar that night, and I hadn't learned how to play guitar yet, but I really wanted to. And he played Over the Hills and Far Away by Led Zeppelin, and it blew my mind. Couldn't believe how good it was. And so right then that night, I'm like, show me how to play it, show me how to play it. And he, of course, was generous enough to try to sit down and show me. He wasn't like most guys would be like, it's kind of hard. It was like, yeah, come on, let's share this, you know.
I took him out, I was his trainer, and I took him out on a lunch break. When we had the lunch break, I had to show him kind of the ropes, see what he had. So we went down, there was a Denny's that was about 100 yards away from the hotel. I know, a Denny's that had a full bar. So we went to the Denny's with the full bar, and we walked in, and I said, well, what we do on our breaks is we drink as much beer as we can for 30 minutes, and then we get back and we go finish out our shift. But Bryan at the time was a pretty small guy, and I thought, he can't drink anything. So I said, tell you what, you try to keep up with me. If you keep up with me, I'll buy your beer too. Well, there was no way he was going to keep up with me. 30 minutes later, or about 20 minutes later, I paid for 6 pitchers of beer.
Bryan Beyer and I became friends in 1988. We worked at the Garden Plaza Hotel together. We waited tables, and we had a good time there when we first met. I left there and went to another restaurant, Jim's Place, and got a job, and it was a pretty good gig. And I helped Bryan to come over there too. So we started working at Jim's Place within a few months together, and we worked there together for 6 years, and that place was really a special job for both of us, I think. We really, you know, cultured some long-term friendships from that restaurant, from that gig. It's kind of crazy that we did that in a restaurant, but it was a cool place to work. You will hear from probably other folks who worked there with Bryan and met him there. We had some good times.
I met Bryan when I first moved to Memphis, and I started working at Jim's Place East. He was one of my first friends here in Memphis, and that was back in '89, I guess. Yeah, we just hit it off right out of the gate. Had a lot of similar interests, like same music and stuff. Yeah, we really hit it off, and got to know him and several other. That was kind of the beginning of my friendship base here in Memphis. It all started at Jim's, and Bryan was really kind of the seed.
I met Bryan through Gray. I met him and all the wonderful friends that formed a group that to this day still have a bond that I don't think I've ever seen before. This group of guys, no matter where they are, because they are scattered, somehow manage to keep in touch, to get together, to keep that brotherhood going, and it's a beautiful thing.
The whole crazy, wonderful meeting of all these beautiful friends that we now have started in a bar over spring break back in 1988 at the Bombay Bicycle. And my roommate at the time and her and I decided we thought we'd go down and hear the band at the bar, and ended up going in, and Bryan was there with a group of friends. We ended up talking to him that night, got to know each other better that night, so over a few beers, and decided we were all going to go to pub crawl the next night. Bryan is the reason I'm married to the wonderful, crazy man that I've been married to for almost 25 years now.
I know Bryan because he's my Uncle BB, Uncle Bryan Beyer. I just remember being really little. Like, I remember him and Aaron and Pat P and Ford and Dad and everybody being around all the time, and
I was the only kid, nobody else had any kids. Just surrounded by aunts and uncles, mostly uncles.
I met Bryan February 18th, 2001. A fairly new friend of mine, Vincent Williams, who had been a friend of Bryan's, invited me to a party, which is where I met Bryan.
We did everything together, you know, went to ball games, went to the park. Lots of parties here, and Bryan, whenever in town or back before he had moved, always part of the party and the life of the party. So we used to have a hot tub. He was always down with that.
You know, I'd like to tell you a lot about the hot tub nights that we had here, but I really can't remember most of it, unfortunately. Honestly, I don't think Bryan did either. In fact, I saw a lot of the pictures there and I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember that. That must have been pretty awesome.
One night we were at my apartment. It was pretty late after I think they got off work, maybe at Jim's place, and we were playing a game, and we had two teams, and the team that lost, at first we were gonna have to go to like the grocery store and just break out into New York, singing at the top of our lungs, the three of us. And then it was decided probably not a good idea since we had been drinking for quite some time. So then it was decided we would have to get in the shower and do the same thing, sing New York with the kick and everything. And so we did, and oh, it was, again, just stupid, but so much fun. That's just, it didn't matter where you were, what you were doing. It was just a good time.
We always went to ball games. Went to ball games everywhere. Basketball games, football games, and baseball. Baseball was our big thing. But we went over to San Francisco to Pactel Park with the Giants were playing. I had no idea who they were playing with. We had dinner in Jack London Square, and then we got on a ferry boat. And the ferry boat took us right to the ballpark. We got off the ballpark and went and saw our game. When the game was over, we got right back on our ferry boat, and it took us back to Jack London Square. I never would have known how to plan that, but Bryan did.
Bryan was just, you know, never met a person, never met a stranger, you know, and, you know, everybody that ever met him, you know, thought he was salted deer.
And I just remember, like, walking around the house in it, and him, you know, being in the kitchen, or watching some TV, or, you know, talking with everybody in the living room or the dining room with a beer, or watching TV with him on the couch, just hanging out. There's some pictures there's one picture that I hadn't even gotten yet until today, of like we're both laying on the couch, and I'm laying and I'm like completely covered by a blanket, but you can still tell that I'm wearing that dress. And he's just laying down, and he's looking at me like just like a loving uncle. It's very, it's cute. It's a dumbly cute picture.
Bryan was truly one of a kind person. He was smart, he was funny, he was kind. He had a sense of adventure, he had a big heart. One funny story that comes to mind is his mom was over for dinner one time, and it was raining, but we were planning to barbecue. So Bryan goes in his room. The next thing we know, he comes out and he's wearing a wetsuit. So Bryan decided to just put on a wetsuit and go out in the rain and barbecue.
He was just a great person. I mean, you know, a joy to be around, and yeah, people did gravitate to him. He was very much a people person. You know, real estate's been his life the last 15 or 20 years.
He went above and beyond when it came to his business. He just helped people as much as he possibly could, and just wanted to see them happy, especially when it came to buying a house.
When my cat Raider passed away, he had been missing for about a week. And I was at my mom's one day when he was found. A neighbor found him in her yard. So it had been raining. Bryan didn't want me to see Raider in the condition he was in. So Bryan blew dry my cat, cleaned him up so that when I came home, my cat did not look in the condition that he did when he was found. And that's just, not everybody's gonna do something like that, but Bryan really cared about how I would be when I saw him.
Every chance you had, you wanted him around. There wasn't a single situation I could think of where I'd say, let's skip Bryan on this one. No, you wanted him. You wanted him there, you wanted him with you, he wanted to be with you, and he was going to bring it. He was going to bring whatever he had, and he was going to make it better. And the world is a much, much less funny, less warm, less bright place without Bryan.
We had some fun times. We had some very inebriated times. If you were around that man, you were guaranteed to never be bored. You were guaranteed to really have the time of your life just in that moment, in that hour, in that day, whatever it was when you were with him. He brought so much joy, and he did that to people he didn't even know. We'd be out and all of a sudden, the next time I looked up, there were another 5 people gathered around because Bryan was holding court. That's just how he was.
He was also very, very humorous. Loved the moment. He was incredible at the moment. Whatever that moment was, when he walked into a room, he could connect with it. He could connect with the people in it. He was there. He was looking for that moment, and he was amazing at making it. He liked to say that, he kept a lot of cheese around. He was prepared for a party, a good time at any moment. And but he also was for him, it was about connecting to people. It was about being there with you in that moment and bringing you forward like any good impact player. He was not just there for himself. He was there for us. He was there for everybody.
He wasn't just special. He was extraordinary. And he always lived his own way. Didn't follow the crowd. Didn't follow any one person. He was his own man.
I remember Bryan as a friend and a very nice one. It still seems impossible to think that he's gone. And thinking about that just seems, it just blows your mind that you would think.
Bryan's fashion sense was out there for sure. He was very vibrant, very, very classy dresser, but very over the top.
Back in the day, if Bryan had one shirt on, he might put on 2, 3. We'd leave the house, but he'd have to go back in and layer a 4th. And it might be a corduroy overcoat and, actually he would wear a vest, and then it would be a sweater, and then we had a corduroy blazer, and then a long trench coat. And a hat and scarf had to go on with that. So, yeah, he liked to layer. But that was his style, and one piece of clothing just wasn't enough.
I distinctly remember him almost always wearing a hat, which was surprising because he had like a really nice head of hair. Just loved his hats. Cowboy hats, baseball caps, anything. But yeah, mostly bright patterns, like button-down shirts and hats.
Loved costumes. Any kind of opportunity to go off the deep end, he would jump at it. Whether it was a Mardi Gras party, or whether it was a New Year's Eve party, or Halloween party, or whatever opportunity came up to get a wild get-up up. That was Bryan.
Bryan definitely had his own unique style of dressing. He liked looking nice, He liked getting dressed up for an event, whether it be something going out or crazy costume. I mean, how many people do you know that have a red velvet jacket?
Bryan Beyer had a big picture in life and what he wanted to do, and was always anxious to move and go somewhere and do something exciting. He always considered him a bit of a metropolitan man, of a friend.
Things get too crazy. Out to the road, out neath the stars, feeling.
Bryan loved to travel. He was all about new places, new experiences, new things, and he did his fair share. I'm glad he got to go to Hawaii, because I know that's something he wanted to do.
Others, they only rage me. Sometimes at night I see their faces, I feel the traces they've left on my soul. And those are the memories that make me a wealthy soul. I tell you, those are the memories that make me a wealthy soul. Traveling man, love when I can. Turn loose my hand, 'cause I'm going. Traveling man, love when I can. But sooner than later, going.
So we took a trip to Athens, and we're driving like 10, 12 hours. I don't know how long it was. But we got there on a Sunday, and we go to the restaurant. We first get in town, we stop off, we go to a restaurant to get something to drink, and sure enough, they don't sell beer on Sunday. So we were just like, oh my God, now what are we gonna do? And it was just a great time, and he was just so fun, and he was witty, and he would tell jokes, and you would just laugh.
We did a lot of fun stuff together. Bryan and I did some great trips. I mean, one time right after we graduated, we went down to visit a friend, Trip Irwin, in Tampa, Florida, and we got to go out on this really cool, this copper tone cruiser boat. It's like 40 feet long, and we got to, before they could wakeboard, you surfed back then, and we surfed in the ocean and went to all these bars, and we had a cannon and shot water balloons at the people at the bars. It was just the funnest thing in the world. And then Trip got us passes to Disney World. We had VIP passes for this, and the passes were actually like name badges with Trip's mom and dad's name. And Trip's dad's was Jim, and his mom is Tootie, which is a great name. But anyway, we got inside and got through, and Bryan decided to scrape off the IE off the Tootie, and he became Toot the whole day, and it was Jim and Toot, and we had a great time. And we did all the rides and just had a fun time in Florida that trip.
When I met Bryan, his dream was to move to California. He could not stop talking about moving to California, and he fulfilled his dreams.
Spend my days with a woman and
That was an adventure for sure. We moved him out in about '99, I guess. Aaron and I helped him. We took it in stages, drove out through Oklahoma, through Denver. Denver was an exciting experience. We drove right smack into a thunderstorm that was coming down off the Front Range, and we were driving a big box truck, and that thing was like a sail. The wind came at us from the side, and I thought we were going to blow over. So we made it through, but it was definitely a little bit more excitement than we had anticipated.
He moved out there and lived life big, and there was never a time that we worried about what Bryan was doing.
Bryan was a connoisseur of beauty, and he saw it everywhere he went and in everyone he met. It didn't matter where or who he was with, he saw it. He saw it in sunsets. He saw it on the beach. He saw it on his travels. He saw beauty everywhere.
Tremble and shake, the children of the sun begin to wake. Watch out.
One of the many things that I'll miss about Bryan is his sense of adventure. We would often on a weekend or a nice day just get in the car and say, okay, right or left, north or south, just get in the car and not know where we're going and just end up who knows where. It was often the ocean or the wine country, sometimes places we had never been, and it was just always a fun time. So there's lots and lots of awesome memories that I have Bryan on our adventures together.
She plays guitar and cries and sings. La la la. Ride a white man in the footsteps of dawn, trying to find a woman who's never been born. Made up my mind, make a new start.
Didn't get to see him as much as I would have liked to, just because we were miles apart, but he always made an effort to keep in touch.
There were times, unfortunately, where we didn't get to see each other for 2 or 3 years at a whack. Now, we'd still text, we'd talk on the phone occasionally, but, you know, when we got together, we always picked right back up where we left off. It was like we hadn't missed a beat, missed each other, you know, at all.
In the late 90s, he left, went to California, and our relationship became seeing each other once every 2 or 3 or 4 years, and emailing, talking on the phone on occasion, social media. I know he was very happy in California with his great friend Heidi, and he enjoyed those days. Those were the salad days for him.
When he moved to California, I didn't get to see him that often, maybe 2 or 3 times since then, but it was such a pleasure to have him around and to know who, you know, to have him in your life. You always knew it was going to be a good time.
He'd appear here in Memphis and we would pick right back up, and it was always Bryan's doing what he wants to do.
I was so happy when he got back to California, because that was kind of his lifelong dream to always be there, and he always talked about it in high school and just going back.
I was fortunate enough to get out to see Bryan with some regularity. I had business out there in the Bay Area and was fortunate enough to, I'd always work it out to where I got to spend a weekend or 2 on either end of trips with BB. So we had some adventures out there as well. Well, he loved to travel and loved, it was kind of part of his adventurous spirit. And I know that one of my favorite things about going out there was, you know, he would, you know, play tour guide. You know, we'd go all over the Bay Area, over to the Marin Headlands, out to Muir Woods, and go hiking around, up to Mount Diablo, out to the wine country. The wine country was some of my most favorite memories. We would go out there, you know, just day trips, but we ended up going out. I remember one trip we went up there, was just kind of spur of the moment, and went up and hit Ferrari Carano. Just so happened they were having one of their biannual food pairings in the cellar, and just walked into that, and it was spectacular. So some of the adventures in wine country were great. Raymond Burr, there were, I can't remember them all, but lots of good memories going up there. Beautiful country, and of course lots of good wine. Go get a big fat sandwich at the Oakville grocery, and go you know, grab a bottle of wine, pop a cork, and, you know, good times. So that was one of my favorites, going up there. But there were countless trips. I mean, we would just go out and, you know, roam around. There's all kinds of fun stuff to do in the Bay Area, so there was no lack of, you know, topics or options.
He was a little more sophisticated than the rest of us, I think. He was a little bit more socially educated, you know, with food and wines and things of that nature. But it was, we all fit in like family, and we are family.
Bryan was a foodie, and he loved his food, and that was something else also we shared in common.
From his music taste to his food taste to his wine taste, I'd always say, pop open a bottle, want your best wine, and toast to Bryan, because that's usually where we ended up, in some great restaurant with a bottle of wine, with good conversation and great friends.
We had many, many long discussions over not one bottle, but several bottles of wine, talking about everything under the sun when he would come to visit. And it was so refreshing, and it's such a huge part of my life.
Mapping the stars for a while. Let the night surround you.
That's how a lot of our nights wound up, just hanging at the house, drinking a fine bottle of wine, and having fine conversation with a fine group of friends.
He's a magical character.
He was vivacious, just really took the bull by the horns with everything, and always had this big ass smile on his face.
He was above reproach, a total man of integrity, and truthful, always told the truth.
If I had one word, if I only had one word to describe Bryan, it would be love. He was just love. He admitted it, he felt it, he showed it. He saw it everywhere. It was just love.
Loving son. That would encompass it. He always let me know he loved me.
It takes a lot more than one word to describe Bryan.
He made life just an adventure, so yeah.
Bryan stood out because he was just one of those people I could talk to a wall, and he was just very accommodating, I remember him just being so kind and nice to just about everyone.
Bryan was always a person you could just, if you were with him, you always had a good time. You always knew you were loved, and you always knew that he made you a part of everything that was him, and he was just a good person.
Just fun. Just a really fun guy. Everybody really liked to be around him. Life of the party kind of guy.
Bryan never met a stranger, and everyone seemed like they were longtime friends with him, probably within 15 minutes of meeting him.
Bryan was just a very quick-witted, always had something funny to say, and lighthearted yet serious about life in some ways, and he'll be sorely missed, sorely missed.
Larger than life, you know, he was just a very vibrant guy. Yeah, he was a very vibrant person, just his personality and his style.
He was an impact player. He showed up to any game, any situation, impact. He was looking for where's the opening? Where can I go here? And always to a positive end, you know, very respectful, incredibly high integrity. My goodness, the man was impressive in his integrity through and through.
Bryan loved music. He liked playing the guitar. He liked listening to music, going to live music. We went to many concerts together. We would sing karaoke in the living room, and there was just a wide range of music.
Back in the day when Nirvana was young and fresh, and everyone was listening to the Cult and so did he. He enjoyed it. We liked it too. But gosh dang, if every time I didn't come home, and if he wasn't sitting on the toilet playing guitar, he had Donna Summer on the record player, jamming to Donna Summer. So to this day, my wife and I, still, we hear Donna Summer, we look over at each other and go, Bryan Beyer.
When I met Bryan, he had a gold tabby cat, orange tabby, named Goldie. Goldie was just the sweetest cat ever. Bryan got Goldie from his grandparents when she was about a year old. Probably 2 years after knowing Bryan, got a cat named Raider. And a couple of years ago, my cat Raider passed away. So after Raider passed away, Bryan and I went out to look for a kitten, thinking that we needed to keep Goldie young in her old age and a kitten might help. So we went to this adoption fair, and this one black and white cat, Abbott, just gravitated towards Bryan, and Bryan, he just fell asleep in Bryan's arms. And then this other black and white cat, Costello, was just climbing out of the cage like, what about me? What about me? So we ended up bringing both of those cats home that day.
As a person, he was a brilliant guy, and he studied things and people and what motivated them constantly, and why things were the way they were or are the way they are. He spent a lot of time trying to analyze and dissect those things, and I admired him for his ability to think critically.
You know, he loved art. He was an artist, and he was also a writer. He was very philosophical. That's a good point. He did a lot of writing. I know he kept a journal, had volumes and volumes and volumes dating back decades. Back when we were roommates, I remember, you know, asking about all his notebooks, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I write every day." And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't. Who does that?" Well, Bryan.
Bryan was just, you know, just again a great, carefree soul, really playful. Bryan saw the positive aspects of people, and that was what he really, I don't even think chose to see. That's just how he processed things, and that's who he was, and that's why people were drawn to Bryan.
Didn't get to see him as much as I would have liked to, just because we were miles apart, but he always made an effort to keep in touch.
A very well-rounded guy, and just a joy to be around, fun to talk to, and I had many late-night conversations on the phone with him over the years. He would call me up, or I'd give him a call, and you know, we'd have a glass of wine and catch up, and you know, he's just, you know, real easy to talk to and always full of good stories.
Bryan, as I remember, was always very big into the arts. Always seemed to be a little bit more mature maybe than I was.
Bryan, as many people will attest, was an extremely creative individual.
In college, Bryan was an art history major. He liked painting. There's paintings that are in the house. There's paintings that he's given to family and friends. There's one specific painting that he did for me years ago, and I looked at the back of it the other day, and the name was "So You'll Forever Have Flowers." Bryan was definitely a food and wine lover, also cocktails. He loved cooking. We had great times cooking meals for friends and family. Pretty much every night we would cook, and that's definitely one thing that is extremely different and that I miss.
He'd come to visit, and he'd say, you know, you live out in the country, there's no place to take you out for dinner, so I'll make you dinner. And we would go to this grocery store, and he'd get the basket, and he'd push it through the grocery store like he didn't have a care in the world, like he didn't know what he was doing. And he'd pull something off the shelf here and something off the shelf there. Pretty soon he had a pile of stuff in the basket. But to me, it just looked like a bunch of stuff in the basket. And we'd come home, and he'd prepare a meal that you could get at any fine restaurant. Couldn't be better. Not only was the meal cooked to perfection, but it was presented to perfection. He had the whole drizzle thing and all that kind of stuff. He did it completely, and there were such joys at those to have those times.
What I want to talk about is him and his crazy presents. I loved his presents. When I remember my last birthday, he gave me this record player and a kid's Elvis Presley record. So, and then for Christmas, he gave me a record. I think it's rock and roll or something like that. And I remember him giving me tap shoes for, I forgot what birthday, but I remember he was giving me tap shoes, and I all over the place, falling over. And he helped me walk with tap shoes.
I remember one time when he came back to visit, and he hadn't had an opportunity to see our kids, not knowing what to bring as a gift for a 5 and a 2-year-old. Brought my kids a tie-dye kit. And at the time I thought, okay, that's an odd gift to bring a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. But he left and flew back to California, and I remember clearly sitting on our deck, and we're tying together the knots into the t-shirts, and we're sticking them in the dye, and we're making a huge mess, and we untied the t-shirts the next day, and it was like, this is so Bryan. It's like a magical, wonderful, you know, art that he's given to my kids. To this day, one of my favorite pictures are of them standing in the park with their tie-dye t-shirts on. Just so cute, just like, okay, they're wearing Bryan.
I'm the luckiest person in the world because I got to be his mother for 50 years.
He really did live life as if this was it, this was the end. So in many ways he found an end that, you know, worked for him. Not so well for the rest of us, mind you.
Bryan is still surrounding me. I hear him. I saw him walking the property the other day, saying goodbye to it. I laid my head down, closed my eyes, and I heard him clear as the day. Hi, Mama. And I knew that he was okay. It's only us who miss him so much.
If I could see Bryan one more time, I'd say, I miss you. I love you. And cheers.
Gone too soon. You know, one of my best friends felt like a brother to me, and you know, miss you, brother. You know, life's too short, but I definitely appreciate all of the times we had together. Lots of fond memories, and you know, I'll cherish them always.
It means that for anybody, it was him. A great man is gone, and it's too bad. I'll see you again someday, my friend, though. I hope so anyway, because if I do, that'll mean I've gone to a good place, because I'm sure that you're at a good place. And I know you're happy. I know you're looking down on us laughing at all this BS that we have to deal with in life. And I look forward to seeing you again and making some more memories. Until then, my brother, I'll be missing you.
If I could say anything, it would be, first of all, we miss you. It's crazy how life kind of goes.
We miss you, Bryan. We love you all. We all love you very much. We miss you, and we hope only the best for you.
If I could see Bryan one last time, I'd just like to say I love you, man.
We love you, Bryan.
Love you, Bryan.
Miss you.
I would tell him thank you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for loving us like you did. Thank you for bringing us all together. And just thank you.
What I know is that Bryan was an amazing person, and I'm thankful he was in my life.
If I could see him again, I'd give him a big old hug and go have a beer and just hang out and just be friends again. So anyway, to my friend Bryan Beyer.
I really miss him because he was a great friend.
It doesn't matter how far you are, Bryan, you're still there. Keep shining. I love you.
If I could see Bryan one last time, I would say thank you for the impact that you've had on my life. Thank you for the many adventures. Thank you for the laughter, the tears. Abbott, Costello, Miss Ellie, and I miss you. I love you, and cheers.
I loved him more than anyone else in the world. Always did, always will. He was my baby. He was my best friend. He will be there, as he is with everyone else who loved him and who he loved. So, let's drink a toast to Bryan.